welcome to Get Booked in 2021. Can you believe it? We made it to the new year. Alright? And a new year means we have new challenges and surprises. So, I think the first thing we're going to talk about for this edition of Get Booked is Cragin Memorial Library is doing a full year of book bingo. So basically we have displays and stuff to go along with this. Jen, do you want to talk about the rules?
Sure. So it's kind of like every other bingo, with the exception of it's about books. Surprise! So there are two ways to win. The first way is you can do the typical bingo, any way that the bingo goes. And once you do all 5, you are entered into, nope, that's wrong. You get a fun mug this month. This one says Cragin Memorial Library. It has our logo. It's really cute. I have been told it is a very good, no.
Mug for drinking tea?
Yes. It holds a lot of liquid. So if you're a big coffee drinker or a tea drinker, this is going to fill you up.
Cool. Are you up for the challenge, my friends?
So, the other way to win is if you fill in every square. And that gets you a gift card to a local business here in Colchester.
Alright. Cool. So we picked a couple books to talk about to kind of show you how this works. So I believe we picked 2 squares to highlight, and then some of these books might actually fill more than 1 square. And that is the other thing about our book bingo. You don't have to read a separate book for each square. You could read one book that might fill 3 or 4 criteria on your bingo sheet, and that is fine. Because you will just write the name of that book in the square that pertains to it. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Well, let's talk a couple more rules.
Oh, that's cool. We have more rules. I completely forgot.
So, we are only asking that you talk about the books that you have read this year. So books that you read last year don't count. Books that you've read 5 years ago don't count. However, we want to really stress that audiobooks count, graphic novels count, teen books count, and some of them will go in the squares and it'll be a little bit more specific.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, one of our squares that we're going to talk about is a book over 500 pages. What do you got for that, Mary?
Oh, okay, so I'm going to go first then, apparently. So I picked Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. This is one of my favorite authors. She wrote one of my favorite YAs. This is not a YA book. This is kind of horror, but it's also kind of funny. So it's a little bit of a twist on a modern telling of a gothic horror. So essentially, this book fills a fair amount of squares. First off, a book over 500 pages. It also has a parallel narrative. So part of this book is happening in like the early 1900s, and then part of it's happening currently today. There is supposedly a curse on this girls' boarding school in New England. In current day, there is a writer who wrote the book about the haunting of this place, and the new ingenue, who's kind of like the B-list Anna Kendrick. So of course the whole time I was reading it, I saw Anna Kendrick as in the role, and her mom was a scream queen. So there's like this whole like horror maven kind of thing that she's trying to kind of get rid of, but also needs to work. So she's gonna do this movie. And there's also like the It girl, who's like the new like queer It girl. It's kind of like the Kristen Stewart kind of type character, and they're teaming up and going to New England to actually shoot at the location of this private boarding school that's been closed down for years, we're talking like decades, to film like the haunting of this place. And it flips back and forth because it turns out it was an all-girls school. The girls were incited by this mysterious book that was getting banned all over the place. The book is actually a real book that the writer found. It was kind of a stir. We've never heard of it. But like it's like having all of these like rich girls to think about like maybe I don't want to get married, and maybe I just want to like hang out with my best gal pals who I'm actually in love with, and like go to France and like write poetry and like do all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so it's kind of like that back and forth, and so you're the whole time in the movie you're trying to figure out, is somebody, when they're shooting the movie, excuse me, is someone actually playing pranks on them, or is it actually a haunting? And so it goes back and forth, because you're wanting to also find out more about what the original story is, because you get like pieces of it, but you don't get the whole thing. It kind of reminds me, if you've read Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, it has that kind of thing where you're flipping back and forth, and you every time that they stop in, like, back in time, you're like, no, I want to read more. And so you kind of, so the fact that it's like this book's like, what, 600 and something pages, I think? But you don't know it because you get sucked into it and you just can't put it down. I read it in like 3 or 4 days, I think. So this book actually covers a book over 500 pages, a book of an LGBTQ main character, a parallel narrative, a dysfunctional family also is in here too. So I think that's it. Oh, there's kind of a love triangle, sort of. So this book is a lot. If you dare, I think you should dare. Which did you pick?
I picked an old favorite that we might have talked about on here. I talk about a lot when we do book talks with teens. It's called Grave Mercy. It is the book talk that I usually do. I'll do a little bit more today. But the book talk I usually do is Assassin Nuns.
I mean, who doesn't want to read a book about that?
And that's it. That's all you have to know. It's really. But the main character is sent to, I forget the word, the convent, sorry. And it's a convent run by Death. So Death is like the god that they I want to say worship, but they kind of worship him. And the nuns train the girls to be assassins, and they see like a mark of death where they're supposed to kill somebody, and that is the god talking to them about what they're supposed to do. And they get kind of sucked into this, it's kind of like a historical fantasy feel. They get sucked into the really young princess, it doesn't say, this one. She's a princess of Brittany, and they're trying to take her power and kind of mold her into who they want her to be and take her lands and be part of France. Which eventually does kind of happen later in like history, but it's kind of really interesting because she's so young and there's so much political drama. So if you like political drama, you like assassins, this is a really fun book to read. Cool.
I think we also are going to cover the book-loving character square.
Yes.
I kind of panicked and grabbed something off the shelf, so you can make fun of me. So I grabbed the graphic novel Meg, Joe, Beth, and Amy, because I think we all know that Joe is a huge book lover. And also, if you didn't want to read this, you could read Little Women. And I'm pretty sure we have other adaptations of Little Women you could also read or listen to.
There's one called Joe and Laurie, so if you're a Joe and Laurie shipper.
Oh, that's right. And then we actually have a new graphic novel that just came out that's from Joe's perspective only, I think. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I gotta process that, though, so.
There's more to the story, which is also an adaptation.
Yep. So, yeah, so, I mean, you think about book-living characters in literature, and, I don't know, Jo March just instantly jumped out at me.
She's a good one.
So, what did you pick?
I picked Jen McKinley's The Good Ones.
Completely different direction from me.
Yes. So Maisie inherits her great aunt's romance novel collection, which is huge and fills like the entire house, which she also inherits. And she's like, what am I going to do with all these books? And she's like,
read them?
Read them, yes. But she's also going to open a romance bookstore, kind of like the Ripped Bodice. So she gets to work starting with that. She meets, of course, a handsome cowboy type guy who's also a contractor and who, makes bookshelves and all these things and turns the home kind of into a romance bookstore. Really cute, lots of romance stuff. There's a little kitty that makes an appearance. There is a secret room in the house. A lot of good stuff. Jen McKinley is a favorite of mine, so this is really good.
Also sounds like a nice, way to start the new year with, a nice romance book. My book was kind of heavy and horrifying, so, yeah, you got 2 options there.
This one I've noticed also does have the kitten on the cover, so it fits with the book with the animal on the cover.
Hey!
Which a lot of romance books do have. Hello, Jill Shaughnessy.
There you go. Yes, we were pretty good with that. I will say, I don't say my book's completely heavy and horrible. It's actually really funny a lot of the time, but at the same time you're like, oh my gosh, what is going on? This is bad news, bears. What's up?
So I was just going to say, we're going to talk about some of the other books, and we'll have more book lists for you with these. We'll also put some of these on our staff picks in the Encore, our library catalog, so you can see what some of these are too.
Yep.
And there is some suggested titles on the back as well.
Yes, and it's not going to be the same sheet for every month. We will change them, so each month we'll have a different, sometimes months might have more than one book sheet.
Next month we'll have 2.
Yes, we will. Depending on the month quite hand, it will make more sense when we get there. So stay tuned because we have got great things to give you, Colchester, in 2021.
Yes. And if you have comments or questions, just let us know and we're happy to answer them.
Yes. All right. Thanks for joining us on Get Booked. We'll see you next week.